look at fuel subsidy, right? We look at the reduction of the cost of fuel, right, by the government to like call them independent marketers, so as to make the price of fuel at a government regulated price. So I'll try to break this down. So now we have what we call the refineries, we have what we call the approved importers, we have what we call the independent marketers, and then we have what we call consumers. So this is basically what I saw, what I found from my, let's say, from my research. So basically, approved importers are the people who get the refined oil from the various locations and then bring it into the country, right? And then they sell it to independent marketers at the government regulated prices. Now, the reason why these prices are called government regulated prices is because the government is actually paying for a part of the total cost of the fuel. So that's why the fuel was about, I think they were charging about 200 naira per liter, then it moved up to about 600 naira per liter. So when the government removed its hands from these government regulated prices, that was why the cost burden now went to the consumers, right? And this was basically why, or the rampage towards fuel subsidy, and why the prices were going up. And I tried to enlighten some people and they were still not getting it. So I was like, okay, this is one thing we have to discuss when this economic today kicks off. So Faraday and Jesse, would you just throw more light into what fuel subsidy is, and did you or do you think it is a good move for the economy at this point in time?
Um, all right, let me just come in here. So first things first, we have to ask ourselves why subsidy. First of all, okay, the concept of subsidy, like Christine has rightly said, is just the government creating an incentive for fuel price reduction for the regular, for the layman, for the normal human being, for the citizen of Nigeria. So the government has been spending billions on this. The government currently owes NNPC about 2.8 trillion naira because of subsidy. So this subsidy has a lot of negative effects. Also, it has positive effects. Do you understand? But people will like obviously just see the benefits that fuel price is reduced for me, fuel price is reduced for me, but they don't see how it affects the economy badly. Do you understand? So why this subsidy removal? Why is the government actually removing the subsidy? I mean, like there's a lot of agitation currently in the nation. People are saying, Tinubu is doing the wrong thing, he's making wrong moves and all of that. But why this subsidy removal? So from the economic perspective, we are just going to see that subsidy removal is going to cut a lot of government costs. First of all, the government is spending a lot on subsidy. Like I said, 2.8 trillion is not small. That's what the government is owing. That's not what it has been paid. That's owing. That's debt. That's not our debt profile currently. 2.8 trillion on subsidy. So the government is cutting that aspect of cost. I think the last time I saw how much the government has saved, I think they said the government has saved over 500 million or so. I think that was about a month ago or 2 months ago, 500 million. So these funds, they are rechanneling them into better investments. Into better investment. I mean, fuel is not our top priority. Fuel consumption is not a top priority for Nigeria at the moment. So these funds are redirected into things such as public infrastructure, for example, now, or probably the health sector or the education sector, or creating jobs, creating employment. These funds are very essential and will be useful and instrumental in other aspects of the economy. And it will also help us reduce our debt. This debt of a thing is a very big issue in Nigeria. People don't see the impact of this debt. External debt, internal debt is a very big issue for Nigeria at the moment. If you know our debt profile, it is insane. It is not normal. I don't think we can even pay that thing back. So, and we are running on a budget deficit here in Nigeria. Our budget is in deficit. We have to borrow to fund that budget. There's an allocation for subsidy in our budget at the moment, but we don't have the money to pay for it. We don't have that money to pay for it. So, basically, these are the benefits I've listed of this removal of subsidy. These funds are being channeled into other things, and this petrol price is still going to come down. Like it's going to adjust at the end of the day. But like people have to just endure. That's what I would say. Because at the moment, obviously, change does not happen just like that. Change happens at a cost. There's a cost for change. So, like the adjustment of these petrol prices, the adjustment in petrol prices is market rate will promote competition and efficiency in oil markets, and this will eventually drop prices naturally. Like that's what's going to happen. There's going to be competition in the oil markets, and prices of this of fuel in Nigeria, let's just say fuel, let's just call it gas, fuel, whatever you want to call it, is going to drop in Nigeria. So that's all I have to say about the subsidy at the moment. Let me just leave Faraday to make his contribution.
Okay, sorry, before Faraday comes
You
in,
have a
like
question?
I
Okay.
actually gained a lot from what you said, and while I was doing my own research, I saw something similar to what you just pointed because I was looking at the projection of our subsidy, the amount allocated in the budget towards subsidy, and I saw that
Mm-hmm.
in 20 from 2006 to
Yeah.
2015, right, the subsidy
Mm-hmm.
in the budget amounted to 8.4 trillion. That was a long 10 like throughout the 10 years
Mm-hmm.
in total,
Mm-hmm.
8.94 trillion, right? Then from 2015 to 2020, and I saw that now this is that was 10 years, right? But
Yeah.
now looking from 2015 to 2020, that is 6 years, right? We now had an exact
Mm-hmm.
amount of the 10 years, right? And then now looking at 2021 and 2022, I saw that in 2021 alone, just 1 year alone, the government allocated 3.8 billion USD on subsidy alone. And in 2022, just the first half of 2022, because they've not paid the
Mm-hmm.
second half, like you said, they are still owing, you get. So they've not paid the
Yeah.
second half. The first half alone amounted to 6.2 billion USD. So I was now looking at the projection.
Can
If
you
this
imagine?
government had left the subsidy in place, Nigeria
Mm-hmm.
would be heading towards dangerous numbers in terms of how much you allocate.
the the current subsidy is just the best thing for the country at this point. The removal of the subsidy is the best thing at this point because we cannot bear this cost. We don't have the money for it. I honestly, personally, I don't like the fact that we keep borrowing to fund things we cannot afford. If we cannot afford it, just take it away. Let us bear okay whatever consequences that's going to be in the short term, so that we have like to enjoy in the long term. Do you understand? We
Yes,
cannot just be enjoying now, accumulating debt, destroying our economy. Do you understand? So it is imperative that we remove this subsidy. Like it is the
I said.
best line of action now for the Nigerian economy.
Economic. I certainly
Despite
agree.
what maybe every other person or every normal individual that doesn't know the inner workings of the economy may say, but if you understand the implication of this subsidy and the cost, I don't think any natural normal person should still want there to be subsidy. So that's
I certainly agree with you on that. I certainly agree with you on that. So Faraday, please would you like to contribute to this?
Okay, so thank you very much, Jesse and Christine. I think you guys have discussed it extensively and you've done justice to the subsidy. So first, I just want to start with the fact that I would say I'm in support of subsidy removal, right? Although I'm not confident, and why I say so, I'm not confident is because looking at previous policies, right? To me personally, and using an economics view, there is no bad policy. Implementation is the problem, right? So you could have the best policy, a policy that would actually solve the problem, but if the implementation is wrong, like that means the results you're expecting would definitely not yield, right? And because you can looking at the trend of policies over the years, that even world renowned economics, normally by the books it should play out as okay, good policies. Finally, in the case of Nigeria, I don't know if it's an African problem, I suspect it is, right? Implementation has been a problem. Looking at the cashless policy thing, you know same thing, was a good policy, but implementation and timing was the poor thing. Same thing as the fuel subsidy. Right? It is the right move to make, but the question we should ask, the big question mark, should be what is the plan? Right? So, like we said, I was reading articles few days back, and I said that just the period of subsidy removal, I think this 2 or 3 months now, Nigeria has saved over 1 trillion naira, over 1 trillion naira from subsidy removal. That's good news to us. But the big question now is what will the money be used for? Because the major reason why subsidy or fuel subsidy removal was implemented, major reason was because there were arguments about people stealing, the money. You have what you call ghost importers, right? So these people are actually not importing oil, but they bring their paper and claim they're importing oil, and they also get paid. So now the question is, if fuel subsidy was majorly removed because of debt, right, and also corruption, which is a very big question. Moving forward, when subsidy removal is being implemented, will there still be corruption? Because if there are still going to be cases of corruption, then I mean, what is the use at the end of the day? So this policy is wonderful, it is beautiful, and I actually think it worked, but the plans afterwards, I think, is a big problem. Looking at Nigeria's budget for 2023, you can see that Nigeria budgeted over 3.6 trillion naira for fuel subsidy, right? While our total budget alone is about 17 trillion naira or thereabouts. So you're having a very large chunk, put in towards fuel subsidy. That's how we see in the case of Nigeria, most people that are into oil and gas and things like that are stupendously rich. These are part of the reasons, because what government does is the major cost for subsidy, or yes, major cost for subsidy basically are when they cover transportation costs, right? Because we know we do not refine the oil right now, we take it overseas, right? We pay for refining and we pay for transportation, so those cost a lot. Then also paying of subsidies to paying of money or covering the cost for private firms, also like you mentioned earlier, independent marketers. I'm not sure if that's right? So these are things that actually cover large chunk of the money for the subsidies. So in my own opinion, I think since fuel subsidy is out of the question, a very big part of this plan should be deregulation of the oil sector. Right, you have private firms right now that are willing and ready to pay the current, right? And what NNPC could just act as now is a regulator in the market. I don't know, just the same thing as how they deregulated the exchange markets. So you have private individuals that are ready to do these things. I mean, looking at Dangote refinery, the refinery has the capacity to provide more than enough for Nigeria, right? Why not? See, when these things, I mean, investors are opportunity seekers, right? They see gaps and they enter into the market. Same thing. Nigeria is rich in oil, and Nigeria has the market. Nigeria has the labor force and everything to make the oil sector boom once again in transparency, right? So once investors see these indicators basically, right, their confidence what does what it boosts, and they come into the market and help out, and therefore bringing dollar into the market, and that would also help exchange rates. Like Jesse mentioned, these things trickle down, right? They have chain effect on each other. So we could also use this to our benefits, giving independent investors the opportunity to leverage on the oil and gas market. They will come in with hard currency, giving Nigeria's currency more boost and more power to these things. So I think in the short run, we're going to suffer, I mean, hike in fuel price and things like that. But if the appropriate steps are not taken, I think what we're calling the short run might lead to the long run, right? Because in Nigeria, it's almost difficult to see something that went up before to come down. Well, yes, speaking about what they want to use money for, I mean, surprisingly, Tinubu's administration, I would say, is heading towards the right direction, because after the news that they made 1 trillion naira recently from the removal of fuel subsidy, the administration has made statements of what they will use money for, and majorly they're using it to boost SMEs, right? So they're giving loans to SMEs about 200 billion naira. The money has been broken down to where they want it to go to, and majorly it's focusing on boosting economic growth, not even majorly building of infrastructures, but providing support to small scale enterprises. Because that's one thing that can actually boost the economy. Nigeria has so much economic potential, right? Businesses are willing to thrive. I mean, over 70% of businesses in Nigeria are SMEs, right? So if you can provide them that support, the financial support, I think economic growth will spur, exchange rates will stabilize, inflation will reduce, and things like that. So fuel subsidy removal is a very good step, but at the end of the day, what the money should be used for is a very big question. I think needs to be answered, and it should be well monitored. At the end of the day, because if the question of corruption is still in play, then to me, there's no use of the policy because it's still the same as the other one. But I think so far we are moving at the right pace, and we're moving towards the right direction. And hopefully, everything